the deepest expression of my love, forever connected in spirit. Your light surrounds me, your life astounds me. You are divinity's dove. You are the deepest expression of my love.
So I welcome you today. I'm Reverend Linda, and just so happy to be here. This is so wonderful to have a great group on the Sunday after Thanksgiving. A lot of people go away, but you're here. You've chosen to be here, and I've chosen to be here, and it's just wonderful. And so, hey, Bobby. And it's wonderful to have Mandy here with the bun in the oven, and it's just really a special day. So when Kathy was talking about speaking with her practitioner, and the practitioner saying you need to think for yourself and not look for something in the new minister, that's actually what we're going to be talking about today is the word transference. And when I first looked at the outline, because these outlines are created for the whole year in our theme, and you can use the outline, you can change it, you can do something totally different. And I thought, okay, that's interesting, transference. I remember, I know what the name is, the word is, but I just couldn't imagine it in a spiritual place. So when I am working towards a talk, I live my life in a way for a week or 2 weeks before, and everything just comes in. It starts creating this little box inside my spirit, and all of a sudden the talk is happening because experiences happen, and it's all about that subject. So we're going to talk about wholeness, and because transference is really about finding your wholeness and realizing your wholeness, because we are enough just as we are. And, we already have that most perfect connection to spirit. So we have to break that habit of the transference, because the transference is something that, messages that we heard when we were children, possibly, or early in our career, or a spouse, or just many different ways we hear messages, and then maybe we're harmed, possibly, and then you repeat those. You take those in as who you are, and you repeat them to other people, a third person. And so I know that some of you people know exactly what I'm talking about, especially around holidays where family comes together and maybe people haven't seen each other. Maybe there's, still a little bit of conflict, and you're working through it. So we don't want to be in our victimhood. That's really important, because when you start to remember those messages, you feel victimized sometimes. My mother, who's 91, John and I picked her up and took her to Thanksgiving dinner at my daughter's house, and she was so appreciative because she's not easy. And so not everybody does pick her up, but we picked her up, and she was so happy. Yet some of the things that she said, I noticed, were triggering old messages. And I thought, I cannot depend on those for my current wholeness of the truth of who I am. It's her place to be and to work through, and it's not mine. So we are ourselves, and so we create our own transference. We create our own thoughts, and then we live that way in wholeness. So in The Living of the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes talks about It doesn't mean, when you break the transference, it doesn't mean that you're isolated from life or from people who maybe did put those messages into that you accepted those messages from. It's the opposite, because it's being whole. It's being whole in life. So we can discover the love and the friendship of all people without seeking to destroy them or permitting them to destroy us. Does anybody resonate with that? You see some big eyes. So we bless our mother and our father and our brothers and our sisters and the rest of our family and everybody who we have ever depended on. We appreciate them all. We love them all. But the good that is coming now is that you're whole within yourself. And there's no longer that dependence. There's an interdependence where you're friends and you support each other, your family, you support each other, but you're not dependent on their approval. And that's really important. So from each person, people, things, institutions, methods, sciences, philosophies, they're all good. And we learn. We learn from everything, the Bible and anything that we choose to read as part of our spiritual practice, we learn from, and we're grateful for it. But it's not everything for you. You take it in the way you want. You don't get triggered by what you might be reading, and you're whole. You feel whole, and you depend on nothing. Yet, like I said, you're always interdependent with all things. So when I was continuing to study this, it took me into an area of traditional psychology. And, taking a person, you go to a psychologist and they take you back to your childhood and maybe use them as a surrogate to have a conversation with your mother through the therapist. And there might be some good that comes out of that, but it's also it's tricky. It's not always helpful. If it is, that's great. But sometimes that might take a couple years. And you don't need to take that long. So at some point, the transference has to be broken in order for the person, the client, or us to grow, to be an adult, taking full responsibility for their own feelings and actions. And we're responsible for our own happiness. So we look within for the needs to be met instead of outside of ourselves. And that is interesting what Kathy was talking about in the minister's search. We're creating who we want to attract, but we want to look within what we need. In fact, I think Christine talked about we consider ourselves the minister. So you're looking within on who you want to attract. I think it was a little hard sometimes with Abigail because she was, provided so much. And she, was a star, and she still is a star. And so there has been some grieving in her leaving us and moving on to another wonderful experience. Yet it's helped us to look within and see our own strength. And that's what she wants for us. So it's just going back to that place where we know we are enough, just as we are. We are already whole. Doesn't matter what is happening, the conditions in your life. And I know many of you have conditions that seem unsurmountable sometimes, but we are whole no matter what. We're not dependent on any of those things or people. And of course, you are interdependent. You need people. You want people around. You go to doctors. You go to church. You do get your human connection through whatever you choose to do. But your being connected is not being dependent. So one of my authors that I love is, I hope I say her name right, Pema Chodron. And there's a book that she has written, The Places That Scare You. And it's a guide to fearlessness in difficult times. Have you read that one? Or heard about it? Yeah. So she talks about the methods for keeping our cool or holding our seat in order to develop patience that's needed for us to stay open and present to what's going on versus reacting or moving into a victim position. And I'm observing this in somebody I know that's going through a death, a person who died, and then just all of the grieving, all the stages of grieving after that, and the anger stage where it just seems like everybody's in that stage at the same time, and it's really hard. It's painful to watch, painful to hear about. And as I was studying this, I was wanting to just transfer this information to those people to help them, because it is difficult when you allow yourself to be just as angry as the person that's being angry towards you. So one of our methods is not setting up the target for the arrow. And I love that. I love that visual. If there's no target, the arrow is just going to go anywhere. It may not even go at all. So we can't be hit by the arrow if we are not a target. And if we retaliate with aggressive words or actions, we intensify that habit of anger and attract even more anger. It just builds. And we set up the target, and we're the only ones to take it down. So if we keep our cool, or hold our seat, or even hold our tongue and sit still, we gain that strength. And that is tamed, that anger is tamed. And we begin to dissolve our own pattern of aggression, which is a very peaceful place to be. Next technique is connecting with the heart. In times of anger and frustration with another, instead of reacting to the other person's insanity or irrationality, and that's a judgment, we pause. We pause to connect with our heart. And it's obvious the other person does not know right then. We think they don't know what they're doing. They're out of control maybe, and harmful to themselves. And it's not a happy way for them to live or to affect us. So we do not want to get triggered by that. And they don't need to be provoked even further. We have the capacity to sit and with the anger we feel and consciously turn ourselves into a more peaceful place, connecting with each other's hearts, and then reflecting our thought in that moment to compassion and love. And practice makes it so much easier. It doesn't mean that you've lost a battle or that you're weak. In fact, it's very strong to be in that place because you're holding the space for that person who is currently out of control or very, very angry, and maybe they cannot control that anger right then, but you can. We can. Next one is seeing obstacles as teachers. Anybody used to doing that? Yeah. So either we actively work on ourselves and the things we're facing with a teacher or a guide or life is filled with plenty of opportunities for us to practice patience, understanding, and compassion for ourselves and those around us. And one way or another, the teacher is always on our side. The teacher could be, it could be what is perceived as an enemy. It could be a situation that seems really grim. It could be a fire. It could be many things. But we see those obstacles as our teachers. And then the last one is regarding all that occurs as a dream. And Dr. Ken Gordon, who is the spiritual leader of our spiritual leader or president? Spiritual leader, I think. He once brought an idea to his talk. It's only form. And that helps people to know that it's only form, it's a condition. To remember that form is not what we need to focus on. And that's not always easy. You know, form is a condition and it's right in your face. But to be able to just look at it as it's a play or a dream where we're the main actor, and it helps us to keep it the perspective. We go behind the scenes of the play or off stage, and we can regroup and get our bearings. And sometimes you need to be in that quiet place to be able to get your bearings. You know, go away in your mind for a while or to another location, whatever you need. And then we can gain control. We can gain control over ourselves, and that makes a big difference. So there's a lot here for us to work on, and it helps to have guidance from someone like a community who knows the territory better than we do, either a practitioner or a good friend that you can trust that isn't going to just tell you what you want to hear. I had a realization recently from an important person in my life that I occasionally get called out on something, and I don't like that. You know, I don't know anybody who really likes it. But if I allow myself to step back and look at it, it's like, oh, yeah, I do have a little bit of a track record in that area. And then it felt good to be able to acknowledge that to that person, because there was an automatic trust that was built. And we can do that for each other here. When you come on Sunday, it's community. We talk, we listen, we have our lunch afterwards. We continue to visit and listen to the music. And so we get spiritually fed in that way. So it's breaking our transference is part of us growing up and coming to life as the whole beings we were created to be. And then we're secure enough within ourselves to stop being part of the problem so we can become more of a solution. And I just have a question for you. What would our world look like if everyone came to the table as their wholeness? Radiant. Yeah. Mm-hmm. At our Thanksgiving table, we usually do a gratitude. We go around, each person says what they're grateful for, and it's just such an amazing thing. Through the years, when the kids are younger, they're part of it too. But my grandkids in this family, my daughter's family, are 12 and 15. So they really have advanced in their thinking and the way they describe things. That day, Thanksgiving, in the afternoon, they had just returned from Virginia with their dad to go visit his mother. And it's a whole different world. I've never been to Virginia, but my granddaughter was so in touch with the differences. She was describing all of these houses. There's so many houses, more houses than they have people for. And so there's a lot of houses that are kind of becoming run down, and it's very countrified, and there's no little communities. It's just very spread out. And she looks at the Bay Area as somewhere she definitely loves being. That is where she was brought up. She's in the social action club at her middle school, and that's probably not very common in Virginia. I don't know, just from what she's described to me. But it was just so nice hearing her interpret that feeling, that difference. You know, where the Bay Area, for her, there's more people than there are houses, just totally the opposite, just very different. And so she was coming to the table, literally, in her wholeness, being heard, being with her family who's interested in what she has to say, and she felt trusting and whole. And she was just sitting up straight. I was just really proud of her, being 12 and having that kind of mindset. And yeah, just wanted to mention that. Any other examples about wholeness? Did anybody experience anything at Thanksgiving that was an example of wholeness that may have been different from last year? Yes, Pat?
We had the honor of having guests from Ecuador. And so two languages and a beautiful melody of love. And it was very peaceful, very loving. And even with my son, "Ahora ve this way." And everybody said what they were thankful for in the circle. It was the tradition was melded so beautifully.
That's nice. Yes.
I got to go to 2 Thanksgiving dinners. So with one set of friends, and then another group of my friends said, why don't we have a second Thanksgiving next evening, and have everyone bring their leftovers from the first Thanksgiving. And it was even better.
Wow. And then a third one today.
Third one today.
Well, we had a jammy day the day after Thanksgiving. Yes, Pat?
We had many ways of saying grace. Some people were good, some people were good, some people and different spiritual paths we were, and we were sitting there all this while.
Yeah. That's definitely wholeness. Well, I do want you to continue thinking about that this week. Wholeness. How is wholeness showing up in your life? And what do you do to contribute to it? What are you letting go of from your past tapes? The transference of old stuff to the new. And how are you letting go of that? And how have you already let go of that? You don't have to tell me now, but just think about that this week. And it's just your little homework. Your little homework. Yes.
Wholeness is showing up in all of our lives as the minister is coming with us.
Yes. Yes. We're getting closer. So, I would like to pray with us now. Let's just take a couple beautiful, sacred, deep breaths down deep into your belly. And just know that in this day of gratitude, of oneness, I know for each of us that we are emanations and individualized expressions of the one God, the one Spirit, the one universal mind. And I know that everybody is touched by this community and feels safe and appreciated and present. I know that we take that through our day and through our week, and it ripples out to our other communities that we're involved with, whether it be in family, work, wherever you go. It ripples out. You can't help it because you're feeling it. It's an energy that comes over you. And this day, being with each other, just contributes to that in a very deep way. And I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for each person here, for our little community that is so powerful and so energetic and growing in ways that are magical. And I know that this is all done in mind right at this very moment. And I release it, and you can join me in saying, and so it is.
I am not my body. I am not, although I have a lot. I'm not what your eyes can see, there is so much more to me. I am God, manifesting. I am Spirit, beckoning. I am love, awakening. In all things I am God. In all things I am of God. You are not your problems, you are not your pain, you are not that little voice of judgment and disdain. Well, you are more amazing each and every single day. You are God, manifesting. You are Spirit, beckoning. You are love, awakening. In all things you are God. In all things you are of God. Holy human, that is what we are. Divine light is our birthright. That's who we are. That is who we are. That is who we are. We are not our failures. We are not our woes. We are not what ails us, though we're taught to think so. We are so much stronger than we'll ever know. We are God, manifesting. We are Spirit, beckoning. We are love, awakening, awakening. In all things we are God. In all things we are God. In all things we are God. In all things we are of God. Thank you. Thank you.